So we've talked a little bit about building trust. We've talked about how the tone, the pace, and the volume of our voices actually really matter and may in fact matter more than the words that we're saying. But are we talking too much? Most parents have an issue. And it may be because it was the behavior that was modeled for you. It may be because when you're at work, nobody listens to you, and at home, that's the only place of authority that you have. It may be because you like the sound of your own voice, or you think you got it all figured out. I don't care what the reason is. But a lot of parents come into parenting with this idea that they gotta talk more than anything. And the truth is, as we're building that trust and we're building healthy communication, we want to switch from communicating or listening to hear, and we want to switch out of communicating or listening to respond into something that's called active listening. So let's talk about listening to hear. A lot of teenagers do this because, especially if they're in the school system, they are asked to listen, take notes, and regurgitate word for word, definitions, memorization. They are asked to show that they've learned something by memorizing and regurgitating exactly what was said. It's a very critical way of communication. Both for the person to listen, they have to criticize themselves a lot, but then they also feel very criticized when just one word or one comma or one punctuation mark is out of place. So listening to respond, right? So that's different than listening to hear. Listening to hear is so that we can hold somebody accountable for something that they've said later. Listening to respond is something that is less done with teenagers and more done with adults. More often than not, adults listen to respond because they are trying to jump in and answer a question that they think you're asking before it even exists. They subconsciously try and guess the answer to your question or guess how you're going to finish the sentence so that they can engage in the conversation in a way that makes them think, feel, and look smarter than they are. The best active listeners use eye contact whenever possible. Even when they're driving or they're cooking, they're going to engage and use their body language to let that other person know that they're listening, that they're being attentive, and that that person is in a safe space to continue talking. Their body language and facial expressions are going to be calm and comforting. They're going to be welcoming to the conversation. So that doesn't mean don't respond when your teenager tells you that so-and-so cheated on a test, but instead of going, they cheated on that test? Instead say, how did you feel when you found out that they cheated on that test? Instead of the drama, instead of leaning in and making a big physical body language deal out of it, we're just going to use our facial expression and be like, whoa. Eyebrows can do a lot, you guys. The best active listeners, they also pay attention to tone, pace, volume, and most importantly, intention. Why is my teenager telling me this story? Are they trying to get attention? Are they trying to share something with me? Have I asked them to open up and now they are? Are they looking for advice? Because guess what? That was the last one for a reason. Majority of the time, they don't want advice. They want to tell you what they're working through and see if the advice that they're giving themselves gets a response from you. They don't want you to tell you how to do it. They don't want you to fix it. They want to vent and they want to see how you react so that they can learn to make those choices better on their own. So how do you take your listening from listening to respond, right, and give them the answers and fix things, or listening to hear where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm holding that person to this because you said that and they did this and blah, 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 blah. Instead, how do you turn that into active listening? Well, one of the best things that you can do is ask for permission before you speak. And I don't mean going, can I talk now? Because no, you can't talk now, Rudy face. Instead, ask open-ended questions that get the other person to keep talking. Hey, how did you feel about that? Or what did you think when you heard that? Or man, that must be pretty overwhelming to deal with. What do you think you're gonna do? Don't give them the answer and don't keep talking. Ask the question and then give them time to answer. That's a 10 count. For those of us who went to kindergarten, that's this long. It may seem like a long time to wait, but psychology has proven that more often than not, our teenagers and the other people we're doing life with, they respond and they communicate way faster than their brains are thinking. And that's why things come out of their mouths that they don't mean or they regret later, because they haven't had time to process. So give them time to hear the question, think about the question, process the different answers to the question, consider which options are best, and then decide how they feel like they want to respond. Give them 10 seconds. And if after 10 seconds they're still not saying anything, ask the question again in a different way. Hey, so how'd you feel? You don't need me to answer that for you. You have a brain. Listen, I know you make good choices, so what do you think? Give them an opportunity to answer the question before you answer it for them. The second thing that you can do as far as asking permission before you answer the question is straight up ask them. Say, hey, are you here to vent? Do you want to just keep talking, or were you hoping to get a response from me? Because I have some suggestions, but we don't have to go there if you just need to talk. I get that. This is going to switch your listening from listening to hear, where you're keeping a chart of everything that was said, and listening to respond, where you're jumping in trying to consciously or subconsciously fix the problem, and switch you into active listening, where you're building trust and rapport by simply listening, just listening, and not showing them how smart you are, how much you know, or how good you are at fixing problems.